As students nearing the end of their doctorate tell me, it's really easy to waste a lot of time in the PhD. The most common post hoc regret is expressed something like, I spent ages not really sure what was meant to be happening. I should have said something sooner, but I was too embarrassed. For these lost and disengaged people, there's an expectation gap. The thing they thought they'd come here to do turned out to be something else, and something that they didn't recognise. The tools of study and hard work they've spent years honing just didn't work for a bigger and more uncertain project, and one for which they were taking most of the responsibility. Incoming students with no experience of long, complex projects can't be expected to automatically know how to do it, and time can be wasted as they figure out that their old ways don't work. Importantly, if they come to feel that you have let them waste their time or withheld information or neglected to tell them something or even set them up to fail, they lose trust in you and communications become strained. They feel let down because students begin with a basic trust for you as an expert in your field and as a member of staff in a university who's experienced this before. If you don't advise them that something needs their attention, isn't working, needs doing differently, or isn't okay, they'll tend to assume they're doing just fine. And then if later they find out actually it wasn't okay, their data's not publishable, or their thesis won't be completed on time, they feel let down, they feel angry, and the relationship with you deteriorates. Had they opted for a graduate job, their understanding of their role would have been informed by a job description and a contract of employment. But we don't really use those tools. So think then, how does a student that you accept onto a PhD place understand their role here? How do they know what to expect and what's expected of them? Think about the points that follow. For you, what are the essential conversations you can have right at the start of the PhD? What are the responsibilities of a PhD student? And what are your responsibilities? What's different for a PhD than it was for a master's or for undergrad? How is the relationship different? Most people have multiple supervisors now. What's the role of each person? Who makes sure everyone's in the loop? What are the working hours of a PhD? What's their annual leave entitlement? What number of development days can they expect to take? What are your preferred channels of communication? When do you want to hear from them? How and how often? And what about getting replies by email? How long is reasonable for either of you to wait for a response? And what about getting feedback? How long is reasonable to wait for feedback on a page of writing? What about 10 pages? What about a thesis chapter? Think about confidentiality of what's discussed in your meetings. Who knows what's said? Where do the notes go? What are the boundaries of supervision? What don't you do? What aren't you comfortable with? And who organises the supervision meetings? Do you request meetings, or do they? When it comes to preparing for supervision sessions, do you do that, or do they do that? Who sets the agenda, and who leads the discussion in the meeting? After the supervision session, who writes the notes up, and whose job is it to follow up on progress made? What should your students do if they get into a situation where they don't know what to do? And what should they do if they haven't made any progress since you saw them? Should they cancel the meeting or come along anyway and discuss what's happened? What if something goes wrong? What if they make a mistake? How do they sort that out? Do your students know who the PGR tutor for your department is, sometimes called PGR convener or head of doctoral studies? Who's that person? What about attending conferences? When do we go to conferences? How many? And what's the process? All students are now trained with the publish or perish mantra. They know papers are their currency, but who writes them? And when do you write one? And where do we send them? And what happens at the end of the PhD? Is it 3 years or is it 4 years? What are the consequences of going over time? And what are some of the myths and legends that persist in your department around how to get an extension? When's the right time to start writing the thesis? Why? What happens if they leave it all to the end? When they finish the PhD, Should they expect a job with you? What's the job market like? Will you be able to offer them a postdoc position? Take a look at the suggestions here. Discussing right at the beginning what motivates your students will help you to keep them going. If all this seems like a big time investment right at the start, yeah, but I think it's a good time investment and a time saving overall. And it's a process that builds certainty from uncertainty, and it will build trust between you both.